Kuwaiti people, this one alleged extraterrestrial woman had to go into their version of therapy because she was watching such brutality, human-on-human brutality, that her whole psyche was blown out, and they had to kind of pull her off, the job and say, well, we're sending somebody else to hover around the Earth because this woman was blown out.
She's lost it, right?
She's lost it. She saw this, and this is not where their level of evolution is at. So I'm sure if it's true that they exist, and if it's true that they really are on a mission of great love that necessitates, from their point of view, that they hold back for decades, if not centuries, in interceding in certain ways that we'd feel comfortable with, all too comfortable. It must be difficult as humans with emotions and with care to watch also so much good intention fall on deaf ears, or for so much good intention to be subverted by power-hungry forces, to be hidden by intelligence agencies, to be suppressed and kept out of the news. Just as a side note, when about a year ago, somewhere in the last year when our film first came out, there were people writing me because Larry King was doing all these shows in UFOs.
Yeah, I was on one of them.
Okay. You know this. And so I said, well, don't call. I can't do anything about it. Write Larry King, call Larry King. Well, about a week or two after I said that and put up a thing on my own website, don't bother me with it, tell them, I got a call from a producer at Larry King, and she said, you've got to stop all these people from calling and writing us. I said, excuse me? She said, if we want the Billy Meyer case or you on here, we'll call you, but they have to stop. And I was shocked, and it took me a while. I waited, and then I sent her an email. I said, my understanding is usually when you're in the media and news that when people are responding to something and inquiring and demanding or whatever, that's an indication, that's free market research for you that reflects the interest of your audience. No? So they don't want to go there, George. They don't want to let the string on the sweater be pulled in the Meyer case because it leads into so many uncomfortable places for so many people. If it's not religion, it's science, it's politics, whatever. It's disruptive to our comfort. And this whole thing comes back to your question, well, why don't they do this for us? They've given it. It's like I want to feel that old adage, a word to the wise is sufficient. I want to take that and act on it. If I can vet this and say, wait a minute, this is a credible source. I don't care who attacks us. This is a credible source. I've got one after another. I mean, information that this man published, he couldn't know. Somebody's advising him, like David Froning said, that's very knowledgeable. Let us, the citizens of our world, petition our governments. Let us petition our news media. Let us demand of them that they look at this, that they investigate, that they're accountable to us about this. If you want to debunk this, Mr. or Mrs. Reporter or whatever, then give us a credible debunking of it. Don't parade forth the same tired folks that, you probably encountered on Larry King's show and all the rest, who really have nothing to say except it can't be true. There's, we're the only ones in the universe and the crowning glory. So we are in a weird position. You and your audience, your worldwide audience that sends the counter on my website spinning, a day before I'm on, I'm going, what's going on here? Oh, they put it up on coast to coast. We're not powerless. What they're telling us is we are the immense power of this world. Nothing is more powerful than thought. Apart from the spirit, it's thought, and the thought that leads to right action. If a person sends an email or a letter or makes a phone call, and that person is simply one of an ever-growing number around the world, wherever this voice tonight is heard, your voice, my voice, the people that would call in, wherever people take action, say, we heard about this thing. We want this. We want to know. Why aren't you telling us? Why haven't we heard about this? Look, there's supposedly a predicted, and our scientists know this one too, the La Palma volcano.
Yes.
When that goes, according to the information of the Meyer case, 20 to 30 million Americans.
Yep. The whole eastern coast.
The eastern coast.
If it's the right size tsunami.
It will come through and to penetrate 12 miles, 1,000-meter highway. I mean, beyond I can't I just can't grasp that stuff, but I have reason now to say, wait a minute. We're getting some warnings from folks who've got a real good track record that goes back 58-plus years. Why don't we have this in discussion? Why are people giving away all their time to being mindlessly entertained? And I'm being broad brush. I'm not trying to offend anybody. But if we could awaken people to some important things, whether it's the Meyer case that they find these things out in or not, we are in a world that needs some repair work. Anybody can see that. The Meyer case has been here giving us this information for decades, and because you have given a platform for it to be presented, we don't have to tell anybody to believe anything. Now they can check it out for themselves.
Okay, now let's get back to the earthquake, first of all.
Whichever one you want.
We're talking about a possibility in San Francisco. We're talking about the possibility in the Oregon area. How big?
Well, the one off the coast of Oregon, they've already said this is a 9.0 that runs for 5 minutes. That's an unimaginable thing. I don't know how it'd be located, based offshore, but still 9.0, 5 minutes. That would generate a tsunami in Portland and other places get inundated. Another earthquake and another tsunami. It stretches down the coast. We'd probably be hit down here in Southern California, separate apparently from the one that hits San Francisco, the alleged projected future San Francisco earthquake.
Oh, really?
Now, yes, that's what I asked him. He says, no, it's a separate earthquake. I said, oh, my goodness. Now, that's the most controversial in a sense because of the story, how we have this as a story in the Meyer case. It sounds like pure science fiction, except there's some strange little elements that are popping up that might show that it isn't. Here's the story.
All right.
In 1978, Wendell Stevens, who I know you know,
yes,
and Lee and Britt Elders, who were the two skeptics, by the way, in the Meyer investigation, hardcore investigators, skeptics with their own ties to, the three-letter agencies and all that. They were sitting around the table in 1978 with Billy, and somehow something came up about an earthquake in San Francisco, and they said, what are you talking about? And Billy walked out of the kitchen, went and got a little packet, the kind that photographs came in, maybe still do, threw this down on the table, and there were 11 photographs. And they were of San Francisco. And Wendell was very clear that these were not paintings. There's a story about the Geo magazine showing a similar thing, but Wendell said, well, Geo magazine had a painting. We saw 11 separate photographs. We saw the Transamerica building with the pyramidal structure on top cracked and on the ground, and we saw different buildings leaning and smoke and all this stuff that he captured, and we're trying to figure out, because Billy won't tell us, well, when does this happen? He claims he was taken in the future and photographed it. Okay. So Wendell says what we focused in on were the cars in the streets that we could see. Now, this is 1978. If we can remember what the cars, the big cars, and I think maybe still some fins, I don't know. He said, the cars don't look anything like today's cars. They're much rounder, more beetle-shaped, with a lot of glass in the windshield. Some of the cars, the glass is extending up into the roof. Sound familiar, anybody?
Yep, sure does.
And he said, now this is where when I initially heard this, I dismissed it, to be honest with you. He said, but there were no projections. There were no rear-view mirrors in the cars. And I thought, well, this is a fantasy. All our cars have rear-view mirrors. Now, since that time, I've received one video, which I may have even put a link to in my article, because there's an article on the website about this, showing one of these futuristic design cars, electrical cars. They don't use rearview mirrors; they have cameras, and so the cameras show on a screen inside the car. This is concept cars. Mercedes is developing it, probably the Japanese automakers. So my guesstimate, what we're looking at here. We know now that the cars have a lot of glass in the windshields. They're rounder in shape. The glass goes into the roof line. Now we're being told the next development that will identify the time period is no rear view mirrors on the cars, or certainly far, far, far fewer. Guesstimate, what?